I'm going to give us both a chance to redo our football predictions for both the Cowboys and the Browns. I went back into the archives, Robert. I know this was very difficult. Went back into the archives.
Oh boy.
And what I found is that you predicted an 11-win season for your beloved Dallas Cowboys, and I predicted an 8-win season.
Yeah.
I'm gonna give you my new prediction on what I think the new win total will be for the Cleveland Browns, but I would like to hear yours first. Go.
I'm gonna go with 8. I'm going 8 and 9.
Are you kidding? I was thinking at least 10. They're only 3-3.
I know, but I don't like the way things are trending right now. So you're asking me in the moment. And this is the moment I think
it's tough.
I think they're a dead even to slightly. The schedule they have is just too tough. The schedule they have is these next. I could see them going 0-3 in the next 3 games.
So deflating, right? We get so excited about this time of year, and then, mine. I'm much more optimistic than you are. As I said, I predicted 8 and 9 with a Deshaun Watson starter in the lineup. I said if it was a different starter, but obviously they're sticking with him. I'm predicting 3 wins. And I think we got a shot at the number 1 overall pick, which we will trade away for some player to be named later. That's not very good.
Oh, you shouldn't. You shouldn't. Should get that albatross called Deshaun Watson off your neck, and
it's not going to happen.
I know it's the big deal.
It's never going to happen.
Just it's a real sad thing.
It's never going to happen. So
I mean, if you could get a great quarterback, though, you could basically do what the Steelers did, right? I mean, you could sort of bench Deshaun and basically paying for a hot rookie.
They're not going to do it.
I don't think they are.
Never going to do it. They're never going to do it, and I am going to have to switch teams. That's all there is.
No.
This is it.
No. Yeah.
This is it. All right. I think I can't talk about this anymore.
Oh, yeah.
Let's go.
Just remember, everybody has your story to tell. Tell it well. Untitled Marketing.
And now, for your listening pleasure, here's Pulizzi and Rose, covering the week of media, marketing, and digital content news. This Old Marketing. Take it away, boys.
Well, hello, friends. Welcome to This Old Marketing, proudly brought to you by the HubSpot Podcast Network, the audio destination for business professionals. I'm Robert Rose, and welcome to episode number 451 for Friday, October 25th, 2024. A special episode, the content marketing world special episode. And with me, as always, as he always is my pal, my colleague, and a guy whose team is only losing slightly more often than I am, Mr. Joe Pulizzi. Yeah, it's sad days in football land, that's for sure.
It's what's tough is, and I mentioned this before, I look so forward to football season, as you do.
Yeah.
And to have it be over so soon.
Yeah.
After not a month. I'm like, come on. This is and granted, I'm a Cleveland Cavaliers basketball fan, but I'm not. That's my third. Like baseball and football are both pretty close head to head, and then there's basketball. So it's a tough one. That's why I've been getting into Premier League football. Which
well, there you go.
Arsenal. Arsenal is my team. I like the women's and the men's team.
Okay,
Arsenal, and I'm starting to follow that. Have been for the almost 8 years now.
Yeah,
I'm really getting into it. I can tell what offsides is now.
Yeah, you know what we there's a Ted Lasso episode about that. You know what we haven't talked about at all is Caitlin Clark and the huge earth-shattering decision she made.
What did you think about her decision?
I'm a little torn on it, actually. I get it. I mean, I get why she decided that it wasn't in her best interest to stick around. And for those of you who don't know, basically Caitlin Clark huge star coming into the WNBA and out of college, had an amazing rookie season
with the Indiana Fever. Yeah.
With the Indiana Fever and all of that, and basically carried the team on her back. Has decided to quit the WNBA and go off to Europe. And I get it. I get her decision. I guess I don't know enough about the beef, right? So whether or not she really has, you see all the videos and the pundits basically talking about how she was just mauled on the court. And I get it.
Did she say that though? Did she say that she just
she never said it. She never said.
The arguments the media is making is that she was just in every game she was getting hacked and pushed, and the refs weren't calling things and unfair. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah. I'd have to see.
I don't know. I don't know enough about it to really comment on it. But
well, that's perfect for this show.
Yeah, well,
I mean, we don't. It's not like anything that we just know a little about. Like if we just maybe read a headline. Yeah, I think that's kind of our show.
Yeah, I mean, but I'm very comfortable giving a hot take where I know nothing about a topic in marketing. Right? Yeah, that's the best. But when it comes to like Caitlin Clark and her career, I definitely don't know enough to have a real hot take on this, other than the fact that I kind of understood it, right? And I think what I can comment on and say is that I think it's a if we were doing winners and losers, I would say the WNBA is the big loser here, right? They're the big loser. They did not handle this well. The league did not handle this well at all.
Correct. And I hope it doesn't damage the progress that it's been made. I mean,
I think it has.
Watching is up, the money is up.
Yeah,
they really feel like for the first time since it started in the mid 90s, the WNBA has a chance to really start to grow and become kind of a key sport for everyone in the United States to watch. So I hope that comes. But I'm bullish on all women's sports right now.
Totally, 100%.
Women's soccer, women's basketball. Everything. I'm in.
Oh, I'm such a fan of watching the games. I mean, one of the things about, and I think I've said this on the show before, about watching is basically college basketball and the WNBA and women's college basketball. In addition to that, all of that is that I can actually follow the game. I'm a little slow when it comes to basketball. Like I'm not an aficionado of all the plays and the way that things happen and, the coaching and all that kind of stuff. And those games are slower than men's NBA games. And I don't mean slower like bad. I mean slower just like you can see things happening.
There's plays called.
Yeah.
That's the difference.
Yeah.
There's actual plays. You don't just throw it into LeBron, fadeaway jumper.
Right. It's and they're fun to watch, right? They're fun to watch because it's not it's not just run up and down and score until somebody can't score anymore, right? I mean, there are so I really enjoy it I enjoy it much more than I'd actually do the men's NBA stuff.
The women's college basketball Final Four was in Cleveland, Ohio last year, and it was one of the greatest sports. I've been blessed to go to World Series games. I haven't gone to a Super Bowl yet, but I've been to a lot of really amazing sports activities in person, and that's one of the greatest I've ever seen. The excitement of the people. I mean, it was electric the entire time. So yeah, I'm going to more. I'm a fan. I'll be going to more.
Fantastic.
So, there you go. Speaking of fans, I'm a fan of your. I read your LinkedIn post where you talked about the research that CMI did, and we decided that we were going to cover a little bit more of this. Correct?
Yeah, we're going to do a special episode here since it is the week of Content Marketing World, and as this airs, I'll actually be back at home. But this week is, as we come to air is Content Marketing World. I will have been all week in San Diego.
San Diego.
So many jokes are right there. There's just so many Anchorman jokes that I want to do. But it was a great time, I'm going to say in advance.
Meanwhile, you're in the
Bahamas. Yeah. And
I like that. That's like when somebody goes on a date. Is it? Oh, that was a Pretty Woman. If I forget to tell you, I had a great time tonight.
That's
before
right.
the date. That's what you're doing.
Yeah, exactly. That's good.
Okay, Julia. Thanks, Julia.
I like that. I like that. There's a joke that's right there in my head too. I'm not going near right now. Anyway, we thought we'd do a special episode with content marketing. And so what we're going to do is we're going to talk a little bit about the research that literally came out just as we come to air a couple of weeks ago from Content Marketing Institute, our annual research that we do every year for B2B content marketers and sort of the state of the state, as it were. And then, we'll talk a little bit about my post, which we'll get to in just a second. And then we'll make some predictions, hopes, dreams, aspirations for where we think content marketing as a beloved practice is going in 2025, and have a bit of a discussion about that, and see what we can actually do about it. See what we can do about this situation that we find ourselves in.
We're going to fix everything.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So it could be a fun journey. It could be a fun little journey. Maybe we don't know what each other's going to say. So maybe it'll be fun disagreement. Maybe it'll be sort of violent agreement, or maybe we'll just talk about the Browns and the Cowboys for another 45 minutes.
Let's talk about content marketing for everyone's sake.
Let's definitely do that.
Please, for the love of God.
All right. So very quickly, as we get into this, one of the things that we do every year at Content Marketing Institute is we have our benchmarks, budgets, and trends research that, you really originated this whole thing in 2010, I think was our first year to do this, 2010 or 2011.
We did the first research we did with American Business Media in 2008. And then we expanded on to Marketing Profs. And then the first real CMI study was 2010, because it wasn't named CMI until 2010. But yes, you are going through some iterations.
Basically, 2024 is the 13th or 14th version of this since that sort of major launch. And I'll just go through very quickly some of the research findings that came out of this. Basically, 60% of B2B marketers are rating their content as sort of moderate, their strategy, by the way, moderately effective. So average, basically half of those say that the struggle is because they lack clear goals, a documented strategy. 1 in 3, basically only 30%, say they have a scalable model for content creation. The biggest challenge that content marketers named was a lack of resources. So they're not getting the resources. And when we start looking through some of the other sort of high level findings, we start to see a pattern emerge. And the pattern that emerges is one that, honestly, if you've been close to the research, doesn't look unfamiliar at all, right? So the whole thing about where B2B marketers, find their content strategy is sort of right in the middle, like half, sort of meh, sort of in the average. Basically, why they don't feel as effective? Well, they don't have goals. There's not, the content they're creating isn't tied to the customer journey. They're not data driven. They have inefficient or ineffective audience research. In other words, they don't know what content to create for the audiences that they're creating. Why that's a big problem? Because they don't have time, they don't have budget, they don't have the people. There's a lack of leadership, no direction, and they have internal silos, and on and on and on. So we could certainly speak to some of the different aspects of this, but it's basically the same thing that we've seen really for 5-6 years, right? And ultimately, what I came to the conclusion to when I sort of read the research was how remarkable it was in its unremarkableness. In other words, there was nothing really that stood out from previous years in terms of progress getting made or failure getting made. And then I wrote my LinkedIn post, which you very kindly mentioned, sort of introducing the research. And I kind of went on a little bit of a rant about where we are right now, because we've certainly felt it in the work that we do with clients. I've heard from agencies, from consultants, from internal marketing teams. We've talked about it on this show, the sort of quiet recession that's going on in marketing and content, that not a lot of new is getting done. And my observation that I made in the post was that the real unfortunate truth is that B2B marketing teams are sort of stuck right now. We're stuck in this sort of endless cycle of fixing things, right? The CMS isn't fully implemented, so we're busy trying to get to phase X of whatever new CMS is being put in or new digital asset management system. The marketing automation system hasn't ever worked really well other than a spam gun, so we're trying to make some tweaks to it. The phase X of getting access to the data, like analytics data from the analytics team, isn't going very well. We can't get that dashboard done, so we're working on that. New CMO, he's reorganizing things with the teams, and so we're busy reorganizing roles and responsibilities, so we don't have a lot of time to do new innovative things. We're playing with AI, sort of throwing spaghetti against the wall, but we're not really trying anything new. And what's the outcome of all that is sort of nothing, right? And then this is what the research speaks to me, is that there is nothing really happening from the world of innovation, of new things, of big creative ideas, of big swings for the fences, of anything that is bringing joy, honestly, to the practice of marketing and content. And I mentioned the word joy and the practice of marketing and content because what I'm finding is that, and the research, our other research that talked about career and salary surveys showed this, which is right now, marketing's kind of in an identity crisis in many companies where we don't really know where we're trying to matriculate into as marketers. Like where are we trying to go from a career standpoint, other than sort of moving to another company that might do some things that we want to do, or get laid off from a company that's not doing anything into a company that's actually doing stuff. And so there's a lot of answers to that where we see innovative companies doing, and we'll get to that a little later. But that's sort of the problem and the situation that we find ourselves in today, which is what I'm hoping for. And maybe, when we talk about our predictions and aspirations and hopes and dreams for 2025, is that we're all sort of just like poked in the chest a little bit to say, let's do some stuff. Let's actually do things in 25. Let's not get so wrapped around the axle of maintaining things and busyness and sort of think that we don't ever take a swing for the fences. Let's bring back some of the joy, the risk. One of the things is we've made marketing so risk-free, but at the same time of making it risk-free, just focusing on those incremental improvements, one more ranking, we're now 15th instead of 17th on the search page, one more percentage of conversion rate because we changed 14 shades of blue of the call now button, right? One more lead that we get every month now because we launched this new thing. So we're kind of making progress, but we're really sort of taking 2 steps back for every 1 step forward. So that's where I sort of sit at the end of 24. And I have lots of thoughts about where I'd like to see and what I predict we'll see with content marketing going into 25. But I'll stop there and sort of get some of your overview, and then maybe we can go into some predictions here.
Well, I have many thoughts. I think what we should do is come back from break and go into those thoughts.
Well, let's do that. Let's
do that. Get that pesky stuff. By the way, when you do the intro, I like you got a hand thing going on when you go the destination for marketers.
100%.
Like you bring the hands out
100%.
Really
and
impressive.
Here's the funny thing is, like, the way my camera is set up right now is that it's kind of a fisheye sort of thing. So it's like, you get this kind of groove going on, right?
For those of you who
it's like I got big gorilla.
For those of you who are listening and not watching on YouTube, you're probably better off. You don't gotta see your hands that large in front of me. Okay, let's do some bills.
With smaller budgets and sky-high expectations, growth, well, it's feeling pretty painful right about now. But HubSpot just announced more than 200 major product updates to make the impossible growth feel impossibly easy. Like Breeze, a suite of new AI-powered tools that help you say goodbye to busy work and hello to better work. Breeze Intelligence to give you the richest, most comprehensive picture of your prospects and customers, and reimagined marketing and content hubs to attract and convert more leads and send your revenue soaring. Visit HubSpot.com/spotlight to learn more. You want to follow the hot new podcast? Let me give you the hottest one I know. It's Entrepreneurs on Fire, hosted by John Lee Dumas, and it's available now on the HubSpot Podcast Network. Entrepreneurs on Fire stokes inspiration and shares strategies to fire up your entrepreneurial journey and create the life you've always dreamed of. This podcast is for anybody who wants to learn about entrepreneurship. If you like fast-paced and packed with value stories, this show is for you. Entrepreneurs love this show because John raves about successful entrepreneurs, from failures to aha moments to what is working for them currently. You can find Entrepreneurs on Fire wherever you follow your favorite podcasts. That song is a headbanger. I love that song.
That's your AI song, right?
Yeah, it's an AI generated song.
So you created it with the help of robots.
Yeah, it's got
it's
a good
Robert and the
melody
robots.
though. I like the melody of that one.
After we're done with this podcast, I absolutely put that back on and I listen to it the rest of the day.
Do you really?
Amazing.
It's on your playlist. Yeah. It's on your added it to your Spotify playlist.
Robert's. It's on a playlist called Robert's Fake Music.
Yeah,
and I listen to Robert's fake music all the time. Although it is very nice. I do.
It's fake news. It's fake music all the time.
You're getting better. You're getting better.
My Trump's getting there. It's
nothing like your Sean Connery.
No, fake news.
So I have a few thoughts.
Content marketing. Yeah. Yes.
I don't want to say it saddens me, but I think if you took the B2B content marketing benchmark report from 5 years ago, you wouldn't see hardly any difference. To your point,
it's exactly right. You don't. I did exactly that, and I looked at it does this kind of thing, right? It just sort of bounces along. All the sort of stats bounce along with the only thing that has changed meaningfully is, which is funny to me, because every single year, when we ask the budget question, the content marketers expect more budget in the coming year, right? And that hasn't changed at all, right? Every single year, they expect more budget to come, but every single year it never does, because they always complain about not having enough budget or resources to do anything. So it's like, it's a fascinating thing to me, where we feel like we're doing okay with it, and we feel like we're doing, what we're trying to do, and we expect the business to recognize that, and it just never does.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say something a little bit mean. When I hear a marketer say that they don't have enough budget to do what they want, I think it's a cop-out.
Totally. I agree.
I think it's a total cop-out. And the bigger reason, and I've come to find this more in the last few years as I've talked to more content entrepreneurs and content creators, is because content creators, when, for the most part, you're not talking Mr. Beast here, but your regular content entrepreneur that is funding their operation and they're financially independent, and they figured out a way to build an audience and monetize that audience, they don't have near the resources that anyone listening to this does who's in a mid-sized organization. Just don't. So they're figuring out a way to get it done. And I think in a lot of cases, just to go back to some of the research you're talking about, and you mentioned this in your LinkedIn post, yes, we want them to do something more, but by doing something more, you have to look at the things you're doing from a strategic standpoint and start killing some things. It is ridiculous, the things that we've been doing over the years that don't make a big impact on our audience, and we continue to do them because
that we've always done.
We're not going to change. We're just doing the same. And you mentioned this. You're just doing the same thing. Well, it's time to make some tough decisions and say, well, that's not worth our time anymore. I mean, I mentioned I present on the whole idea of content energy. Your organization has a finite set of what I would call content energy. You only have, depending on the resources, you only have so much of this energy, and whatever you put it toward will be successful. If you put more of that energy toward one or two things, you probably will be successful instead of watering down all the things to the average. I think the research shows that marketers are creating and distributing content in 12, 13, 15 different places. I mean, if that's not a recipe for mediocrity, I don't know what is. So
100%.
we have to be smarter about how we take the limited resources we have and say, no, we're not going to, these 5 things that we were doing last year, we're not going to do them. But again, that's the kind of decision that we start getting nervous. We get the butterflies going. We're risking our jobs by making some of these decisions, but maybe that's what we need to do.
It's 100%. I couldn't agree more. I mean, in fact, it's in my LinkedIn post, I actually offered up one of the remedies, if you will, to some of this mediocrity. And it's one of the things that I said front and center was stop doing some things, right? Which takes as much guts in many cases as starting to do something new, right?
Or more.
And I 100% agree. And you know what one of the challenges is that, again, some of the other research that we had this year pointed to was that in so many ways, we talk a lot about the fluidity of marketing and tenure, right? Is that, marketers don't stay long and they don't have any loyalty and they're not bouncing around. What a lot of companies have failed to do in the way that they look at marketing and content, modern, and I'm talking about modern, especially in B2B. B2C is guilty of this too, but B2B is especially guilty of this, is that marketing is seen as a puzzle to solve, not a place to create great creative things. In other words, what's happened is that in so many cases, marketers are brought in to solve the intellectual puzzle of getting one more incremental lead or getting one more incremental search engine optimization thing or getting a piece of technology implemented and managed and getting, the right shade of blue on the call now button and, getting the right landing page order together and all of that, right? To solve this intellectual sort of Jenga puzzle of what digital marketing is, that we don't care that they don't care. In other words, if you ask the general market, I just had this with a client 2 months ago, where I said to it was a lead in marketing, like a senior director of marketing. And I said, can you give me it was a very highly technical B2B company. And I said, can you give me sort of the 101 of the industry and what's going on because I didn't know anything about it, right? It happened to be cybersecurity. And I said, can you give me sort of the 101 of what's going on from your industry, from what's going on from the subject matter? What are people talking about? And he goes, oh, I don't know. I don't know anything about what we do, and it's like that mentality. And I don't blame the marketer necessarily, because what's happening is that the company doesn't care about making sure that their leads in marketing know what is going on in the industry. No, I used to have back in the day, early 2000s, we would have full day sessions for salespeople, for marketing people about what was going on in the web content management industry, who the competitors were, why people care about this, what's going on. Basically, we wanted as much as we could to turn them into subject matter experts so they cared about taking those big strategic leaps, right? So that they cared about the topic. And we're so often they don't care about the topic anymore. They just see it as a puzzle. And to your point, then it's just a matter of just tinkering with things, and we never stop doing anything because we just continue to tinker with it.
I think the company is to blame for that, Robert, but it's on the individual. It is. You cannot take like that person. you got to do that. It's just like when you're applying for a job. It's like you want to find out as much about the company that you're applying for, so you can ask the right questions. You can understand. You go. I mean, that's just.
It lies at the feet of both, right?
Yes.
What I mean to say, it's not only the fact that the person doesn't take the initiative or the time to go learn about the topic that they've now joined with this company being in marketing, but I lay it at the feet of the company as well, because the company doesn't demand of it, right? The company doesn't say this is what's expected of you. Go read the books, go understand, go, read the white papers, become a subject matter expert in our topic.
So some of my other thoughts, and then I'd love to hear more of what you've got going on. I think our definition of content marketing in a lot of cases is forgetting the idea that we want to positively affect the audience in some way that has nothing to do with our products and services. And you talk about this outside the products and services we offer. How can we positively affect the lives, the jobs of this audience group that we're targeting? And I think in a lot of cases when we're doing a documented strategy, whatever that is, we forget about that. And it's like simple thing is when you do like, oh, we're going to do our articles or our posts or our podcast, we want something in the spreadsheet that says, well, what is the audience supposed to get out of this? Number one, that's the number one thing. And I get it. We have things that we've got to sell. We've got goals. We've got KPIs, all those things. We get that. But first and foremost is you've got to focus, I think, take a publishing perspective, which is sort of the core of content marketing, and say our audience needs come first. And if we satisfy those audience needs and we do an amazing job with that, we will solve the marketing challenges that we have. And I think in a lot of cases that's being forgotten, because when you're getting in these marketing meetings, you're like, okay, what's our goals? What do we got to do? What do we got to hit this quarter? What do we got to, and it all comes down to leads and rankings and those types of things that we often forget. And then we're just checking the box, as you said. We got to do the podcast, we're doing the newsletter, we're doing the article, we're doing whatever. So from this research, I would probably say a couple things. Yes, less is more. Figure out a couple things where, and you know that I'm really struggling with this idea of, I think that time spent, if a brand or an individual creator on your team spends more time with an audience member, a prospect, or a customer, that's a big deal.
Yep.
And I would like to substantiate that a little bit more. So what does that mean, time spent? That means you want them to read your articles. You want them to listen to your podcast, watch your long form videos. I think that if you look at your data that you have as part of your content marketing function, and you look at, if you can substantiate how much time is this group of people spending with us? Are they listening to our hour podcast every week? Are you building those true fans? Then you'll start to say, oh, hey, the ones that spend 30 minutes or an hour with us every week, guess what? They're more likely to talk more about our products and services, about our brand in a positive way. They're more likely to buy. They're more likely to go to our events. They're more likely to spend more, whatever your KPI is, right? Whatever it is at the end of the day. So that's where, if I'm going to take time and make some of these tough strategic decisions, I would probably say, let's maybe on these social channels, we don't even need to be creating any content at all. Maybe we just need to be present. Maybe we just need somebody on the team present and communicating with those people who are commenting, be a part of whatever, if it's a Reddit group, or we've seen a big trend toward less, especially in B2B, less happening in the big social media networks and more happening on discussion forums, LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, those types of things. We don't need to be creating content in those groups. We need to be present. We need to be answering their questions. We need to be commenting, thoughtful comments. That's what's going to make a difference, whether you call that content marketing or not, whether that's under social media's purview or not, doesn't matter. And then you say, okay, how are we going to every week spend as much time with this individual as possible with our longer form content? So that's where, and I know there's been this big shift over the past few years of this bite-size content, snackable content, if you will, and I can't stand it. I'm totally against that. I think I want to go back to content marketing's roots, which content marketing was born out of the magazine industry, which was reading long form articles, reports, books, that type of thing. So take that into the digital. That means you're probably looking at podcasts, you're probably looking at longer form videos, you're looking at documentaries, you're looking at those types of things where you're making a positive impact on that audience person and you're spending a lot of time with them. And if you then can measure that and what that time is doing from a marketing perspective, I think we're all going to be a lot better off. So
good rant. I think that's right on the money. I mean, it gets to a conversation we started last week with the idea of, think local, right? And that feeds into, I mean, I've written about this lately, which, we've been calling content at the edges, which is how do you not necessarily have your brand posting long form content on LinkedIn or social media or whatever, but how do you have people within your organization, whether it's your leaders, whether it's your subject matter experts, whether it's you, whether it's your entire team, basically creating value at the edges in those social media networks with good long form content because and as I've written about and we've talked about, Amanda Natividad has been doing a lot of great work in this over at her and
Spark
Rand
Toro.
Fishkin. Yeah, thank you, Spark Toro.
Yep.
And talking about the zero click idea and how to create value. You have to now create value in that moment. You have to create the value with that long form content in that post, and it has to earn its keep, and it has to earn its, virality, whatever it's going to have in that moment. You can't depend on how big the audience of the company is anymore. You have to start depending on the individuals to actually get that message out, because it's going to be more trusted than it is coming from your brand. And then you go, okay, well, how does that then reconcile with what we're doing with our owned media? You have to make that owned media experience super special. Like, it has to not just be the long form blog post. It's got to be like the Glengarry content, right? It's got to be the good, really good exclusive stuff.
Yeah.
And basically create that level of exclusivity so that you're creating community, you're creating a reason for them to visit your website, you're creating a reason for them to stay loyal to it, and ultimately, as you said, spend time with it.
The whole move that you're talking about for more local, I know this is not a predictions episode.
Yeah.
But I think we've got, as a content marketing group, as a content marketing professional, we've got to focus on that. Now, whether or not you go and you start hiring just creators to take over some of these things, but the stuff has to come from an individual. I mean, and you and I, we've tried some of these things ourselves, and whether it's This Old Marketing with Robert Rose and Joe Pulizzi, or whether, I don't know what's more important, but I think it's the Joe Pulizzi and the Robert Rose that makes this over This Old Marketing, if you will.
Totally.
But it's very
100%.
hard. It's very hard for companies to do that, but that's the decision. That's the risky move that we've got to make, and say, the newsletter is not coming from the content brand anymore. It's coming from Lisa, and Lisa's running the ship. And Lisa, you're the person. We're going to throw you out there. And I think if you look at every content creation effort that you have, you got to start thinking about who is the individual or outside creator, however you want to do it, that is in charge of this thing, and everything they do, they're just part of it. I think that's,
or you
that's
have
like
or you have
a
a
secret sauce.
Yeah, or you have because there's two pieces to that, right? There's the promotional content at the edges piece of this, and then there's the actual aggregation of all of those pieces, right? So having a content brand where you have those people pulling in their thoughts, right? Where you're aggregating all those thoughts together. So where Bob and Mary and Jim and and Sally all put their thoughts, they're doing it at the edges to promote things, right? They're doing it at the edges to create that value. And then they're also, you want to have that available in your exclusive sort of super owned media property as well. I think of, just literally because it's top of mind because they won an award, Salesforce's new Sales Blazer community, right? Which is a really cool new initiative for Salesforce. And it won a content marketing award this year. And one of the things that's so cool about it is you would think, oh, it's just another blog that Salesforce has launched about thought leadership in sales. It's like, no, it's not. It's an education platform. It's also a community. It's a place for you to network with colleagues. It's a place for you to learn things. It's a place for you to get behind what's going on in the world of sales and increase your professional prowess when it comes to sales. So it's not just a place to learn about the news and the trends going on in sales or get educated or have a community. It's all of those things, right? You can't get that anywhere else, right? And that is brought to you by Salesforce, but it's not Salesforce that makes it valuable. It's the people in it that make it valuable. And they highlight the people that are in it and, people that you can learn from and all those kinds of things. So that's the kind of mentality and shift that I'm hoping that we can switch to in 25 is how do we start creating these ecosystems of special things where we start creating, honestly, our own walled gardens, right? Not just relying on the Amazons and the Netflixes and the Googles and the Facebooks and the LinkedIns to sort of create that value, to start to try and create at least a magnet for why people want to, and to your earlier point, why people want to spend time with our brand.
who's the with? So if you look at the top podcasts today, look at Diary of a CEO with Stephen Bartlett. Look at Pivot with Kara Swisher and Scott Galloway. Everything's got a with. Even This Old Marketing has a with.
Yeah.
Who's the with?
Right.
So if you're launching a podcast,
great question,
or a YouTube channel or whatever, what's the with? It's got to be.
You're going to write that in a newsletter. That's a headline for your newsletter.
It's already a story. It's already a story I'm working on. I mean, it's part of a presentation that I've been working on.
Yeah.
Because I really believe that we're like, if we think about our content creators, the marketers in our organization, we want to think about like it's a team shop. Like you go in and you've got, Prescott, or you've got Emmitt Smith or whatever.
No, don't even go
Whatever.
there.
Anybody but Deshaun, whatever. But you go in and and again, that's a little bit troubling to a lot of organizations, especially B2B, because you're like, we don't want to give that much power. Well, they're going to you want them to have that kind of power. You want your customers to follow the people in your marketing department.
Yeah.
You do. Or your marketing department shines a light on the experts in your organization. It doesn't have to come from marketing. It could come from engineering. It could come from operations or whatever. But your job is to shine a light on those superstars, because your audience, your customers are going to go to the team shop and they're going to want to wear the jersey of the engineer, of the operations person, whatever. Right. That's what we need to be doing.
Great analogy. But I would also caution you, because I've watched this just go up in a ball of flames, is that just because someone is your CEO or just because someone is your VP of marketing, doesn't mean that they're camera ready and ready to go, right? In other words, there are two questions you have to ask as sort of the professional content, the professional content practitioner, let's put it that way, in the room, no matter what your title is, which is you have to be a great, to keep your metaphor, you have to be a great talent scout. You have to either be able to upskill and coach these people into being great creators for your brand, or you have to have the guts to go, you're not the guy. You're not the person.
Such a great point. That's such a great point. I've seen it happen over and over again. Well, somebody will take an executive and they'll put their name on whatever the thing is.
The podcast is a great example of this. It's like, how many VPs of marketing,
for the love of God.
Yeah.
It's in some cases, it's not your CEO, it's not your general manager, it's not your operations lead, it's not those people.
That's
right. Somebody who is the expert. Shine a light on them.
Right. And help them, right? Because they have to be, one of the sessions that my good friend Mike Weiss is teaching at Content Marketing World is, how do you start approaching and training your leaders to be good content creators? Because that's such an important factor in what we're talking about here. And so his session is basically all about how do you work with senior leadership and train them and help them. It's in many instances, it's what I'm doing a lot of in my consulting work these days. I'm doing a lot of work with executives, especially in startup companies, as well as, mid-sized and large companies, sort of as let's call it a little bit of a Cyrano de Bergerac, or, a little bit of a sort of coach behind the scenes, basically saying, here's what you need to write a book. And here's how you're going to do that. And you need to become a public speaker. And here's some help for you to do that. You need to basically get out there and be loud for your brand, and I can help you do that. And so I think that's going to become an increasingly important skill as we get into the 2025.
So the last thing great point. The last thing I'll say is, as we're trying to convince people to think more strategically and say no to more things and put more love, feeling, and individuality and localness, let's say, into the things that they decide. I think there's always been this ickiness to advertising your content stuff. And I think that needs to stop. I think that whatever you decide is your thing, the podcast, the YouTube thing, whatever your long form piece of content, you've got to take a significant advertising budget and promote the heck out of that. And I know of course, do all the things with content promotion that you normally do,
of course,
organically. That doesn't that doesn't cost any money, but we need to be putting some ad dollars against the content like you've talked about all the time. Treat it like a product. I still don't see a lot of that happening, Robert. And that's what I'd like to see that as well. It's like, okay, if you really care about this thing, is, you know, make sure it's found. Make sure people see this thing.
You know, and you know what the challenge of that is that it's and we touched on this a little bit in the last show as well when we talked about content creators. When you don't have that promotional budget, or you don't have a strategy around the way that you're going to promote this content and have it be found, the knee-jerk reaction is, well, organic is really the only way we're going to get this stuff found. So what does that tend you to do? It tends you to get hyperbole about the headline, right? So in other words, that amazing thought leadership piece, right, that you've created around the way that you're going to create this educational class, or you're going to create this, you know, little curriculum, or whatever it is you're doing for your industry, this wonderful piece of content, you end up cheapening it by giving it a headline called, you know, 10 ways to crush your competition, you know? And so, yeah, you get the clicks and you get the signups, but then you cheapen the whole thing by having to pull in this sort of, you know, grabbing attention sort of headline. And ultimately the content might fail because of it. And so it's like building high quality products and marketing them in high quality ways.
I think that anyone listening to this podcast, we're going to change their lives in a positive way. That's what that's exactly. I'm motivated.
I'm super psyched. Well, here's the thing. So what I announced, you know, and I didn't even tell you this. I announced my new consulting practice at Content Marketing World this week. Yeah, but it's called Seventh Bear. And you said it probably better than I did when you said putting the love, the joy, and the human back into our content and our marketing. And, you know, as we've been talking about it, it's bringing the people to the technology, not the technology to the people. So it's really helping companies invest in their teams and making them much better in what they are. That's the whole focus of our new consulting practice. And so we're super excited to launch it in the next couple of months.
Congratulations. I'm happy for you. I'm happy for you. So anyone, so make the pitch. So
more about that.
Customers listening, do you want to pitch anything? Do you want?
No, I don't want to pitch. I definitely don't want to pitch anything yet. You can go to seventhbear.com, and if you're interested in learning more, and we'll be making a bigger stink about it in the coming months, because we're sort of, we're making the transition and focusing. So so there's a landing page there now where you can learn a little more, especially about the name and why the name and all that kind of stuff. So there you have it. Yeah.
Very good. That's awesome.
Yeah.
More of that to come.
More to come. More to come on this for sure.
More to come on
this
for
for sure.
Well, good. Well, I guess we're back to our regularly scheduled programming next week.
Regularly programmed nonsense.
Of more nonsense too.
More nonsense. Chock-a-block full of nonsense is what this is with.
Good. Well,
chock-a-block full of nonsense with Joe Pulizzi and Robert Rose.
That's it. That's it. That's my article. Who's the with? Who's your with?
Yeah. Who's your with? I love it. I love it. All right. Thank you so much, everybody. We are so appreciate you hanging out. Hopefully this was fun for you. There's my hands again. So hopefully this was a lot of fun for you and also, as Joe said, educational as well. We will be back, of course, next week with another regularly scheduled episode of Nonsense with Two Chuckleheads. Until we see you next week, just remember it's your story to tell. Tell it well. We'll see you next week on This Old Marketing. Hey, thanks a lot for making it this far in this week's episode, and thank you all for being a part of This Old Marketing. You can check out all the show notes of what we talked about today at thisoldmarketing.com, and it's also where you can leave us a review or a voicemail. We need those reviews and comments on whichever platform you follow us on. And if you haven't followed the podcast, please go do that and make sure you catch the latest and greatest episodes every Friday morning. We're on Apple and Spotify and all your other favorite podcatchers, of course, but we'd love it if you went over and subscribed to us on YouTube. That's right, YouTube. youtube.com/@thisoldmarketing. We'll see you again next week, folks, with another episode of This Old Marketing.